Cricut personalized baby clothes makes such a fun baby gift idea for parents to be. But if you haven't personalized baby clothes with your Cricut before, there are lots of tips and tricks that I can teach you to make it easier and safer that I've learned along the way. My name is Alex with DIY Alex. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm a mama to a 10-month-old baby boy named Carter. So over the past couple of years, I have made a lot of personalized baby clothes using my Cricut. So I want to pass along the tricks that I've learned to make my personalized clothes last longer in the wash. And in fact, this is one of my very favorite Cricut hacks that a lot of beginners don't know. And now that the baby clothes are for my baby, I've considered how to make personalized baby clothes even safer. So watch until the end of this video to learn all the different things that I want to share about personalized baby clothes with your Cricut. I'll address the hack when we get to that part of the video, but I want to begin by talking about the safety of baby clothes first. Since becoming a mom, I have realized more than ever that kids put everything in their mouths. I know all kids are different, but if my son Carter could reach something, the very first place that he puts it is into his mouth. So that really made me consider the materials that I was using to personalize his clothes, because yes, he even chews on his clothes. I feel a lot more comfortable using brands that certify their materials as safe to use with children's clothing. CP/SIA certified is a good start, and I'll put some information about that down in the description of this video if you want to go read more about it. But essentially, any toy or material geared towards children under the age of 12 in the US have to be CP/SIA certified. Companies that want to take their testing and safety a step further can get other testing and certifications done, such as the Okie-Tex Standard 100. To be Okie-Tex Standard 100 certified, that means that the materials, and that includes any thread, the material itself, accessories, buttons, zippers, everything is rigorously tested against a list of 1,000 harmful substances to ensure that every part of the garment does not contain any of the harmful substances on the list. So even though this certification is not specifically geared towards children, I feel like companies that seek out and pay for this type of testing really care about the customers and their safety. So because of all of this, Caesar heat transfer vinyl is what I'm going to be using on the personalized baby clothes in this video. They are both CP/SIA certified as well as Okie-Tex Standard 100 certified. Speaking of companies that care about your safety, I want to give a shout out to this video's sponsor, Aura. Let me tell you a quick story. In 2022, I downloaded an app that helps you get transportation quickly and easily. You know what I'm saying? Very quickly, like starting the next day, I started getting as many as 12 spam phone calls per day, you guys. I was so frustrated, I deleted the app almost immediately. But even now, 2 years later, I sometimes get as many as 5 to 6 spam phone calls and texts per day. My personal information was clearly sold so that any spammer who wants to call me can. I sometimes still have to keep my phone on Do Not Disturb simply so that I'm not interrupted all day long with spam phone calls. I know that one of the reasons I get so many spam phone calls and texts is because big companies can't keep our data safe. Unfortunately though, personal information being sold on the dark web can be a lot more serious than receiving spam phone calls. Recently, Ticketmaster was hacked and the data of 560 million users was sold on the dark web. The data that was stolen includes full names, addresses, email addresses, phone numbers, and even credit card information. Because of this data breach, some users might receive more spam phone calls. And that's frustrating, but it's not the end of the world, right? But even more seriously, some users could receive fraudulent credit card charges, or it could even get as serious as identity theft for some users. And what is Ticketmaster doing about it? Nothing. They said that they didn't think that the hack would have a material impact on their overall business. All these businesses happily collect information from us, but they don't do very much to keep it safe. That's why I use Aura, the sponsor of today's video. Aura alerts me when my data has been part of a data breach or if it gets leaked onto the dark web. It also provides fast fraud alerts if anyone tries to use my data to hack into my bank account or my credit card. And it even removes my data from data broker websites so that I get less spam phone calls and texts. Aura also includes things like transaction monitoring, a VPN, antivirus, a password manager, identity theft insurance, and even parental controls, which I feel so much better about for when Carter gets a bit older. I get all this in one app at an affordable price. Aura even sends me a progress update every week that tells me all the places on the web that it scanned for my information and if it found anything and any action that I might need to take. It gives me so much peace of mind. I have an account with Ticketmaster, but if my information was compromised in the data breach, then I'm not worried because Aura is always on, always doing the hard work of keeping me and my information safe. I'm not leaving my family and I vulnerable to data breaches. And if you don't want to either, then you can visit aura.com/DIYAlex to try your first 2 weeks completely for free. You can find the link in the description of this video as well. Now that we've covered everything related to safety, let's get into the craft part of this video so I can show you how to personalize baby clothes using your Cricut machine. So next, let's talk about designs that you're going to put on your personalized baby clothes. This one here on the left, I downloaded from Creative Fabrica and already uploaded into Cricut Design Space. If you need help uploading images into Cricut Design Space from Creative Fabrica or anywhere else, I will put a link up here in the corner of the screen. You can go check that out. But I've already done that step and now I just need to size it. I originally had it sized at 3.5 inches wide, but I actually decided that I'm going to do 4 inches wide. That's a little bit bigger than I usually would. However, because some of these pieces are so small already, they're going to be so tiny on the onesie that I do want to make the size just a little bit bigger. I also created this design using a font that I downloaded from Creative Fabrica. So I have a separate video showing you how I created this design with the little, I don't know, that little swash thing underneath. So you can check that video out up in the corner of the screen as well if you want to learn how to make something like this. Now, this design right here is going to be going on a 3 to 6 month onesie. So typically I would probably size that at about 3.5 inches wide. And on this one, I have it sized at about 4.75 inches wide because this is going on a 12-month onesie. So obviously there's a big size difference there. But a big tip that I have for you when it comes to making baby clothes is to be very, very careful about your seams, especially if you're making like a baby onesie or bodysuit. Those have very, very thick seams and you do not want to put your HTV over top of those because it's going to make it really, really hard to stick. But even on different types of clothing that I've made, like for example, I did a little denim jacket for my son and that has some really thick seams too. And sometimes things like that can't be avoided. So like in the denim jacket, I also made him a pair of overalls. Those types of things can't necessarily be avoided with the seams, but that's something to keep in mind regardless of what type of baby clothes you are personalizing, to either avoid seams or account for those seams if you have to put HTV over top of them. But that's essentially the long and short of it. The beauty of our Cricut is that we can make any type of design for our baby clothes that we want to, whether it's a name being personalized or just something general and sweet. Either way, we can make whatever. So now that we have that step out of the way, let's go ahead and proceed through the project and I'll show you some other tips that I've learned. I'm going to click on the Make It button so that we can go over to the preview screen. And I forgot to discuss types of HTV. So this red Carter design is going to be going in Strip Flock Pro, which is a very cool material that you guys will love if you've never worked with before. But I want to be sure to mirror that as always when working with heat transfer vinyl. This design is going to be made out of Caesar Electric. I'm going to be doing pink on pink for a super girly little baby bodysuit, and it is so cute. But like any other type of HTV, we need to be sure to mirror. Then we're going to go ahead and click on the green Continue button to take us to the prep screen. And now that we're here, let's talk quickly about cut settings because these are going to be on separate mats and they also have different cut settings. Strip Flock Pro is a little bit of a thicker material, so I'm still going to be using the everyday iron-on cut setting for Strip Flock Pro, but in the pressure drop-down menu, I am going to be changing the pressure from default to more. This doesn't make a huge difference in the cut pressure, but it does just a little bit. So I always like to do that on my machines with Strip Flock Pro. For Caesar Electric, I'm just going to be using the everyday iron-on cut setting, and I'm going to be leaving the pressure as default, and that's going to be just fine. So now that we have all of the designs teed up and ready to go, let's hop over to my Cricut machine, and I'll show you how to complete these personalized baby clothes. So we're going to begin cutting the Caesar Strip Flock Pro in red for the Carter onesie. And just like any other HTV, we're gonna place this on our standard grip mat with the shiny side facing down. So the shiny side is that carrier sheet where the back dull side is the actual HTV. Then we put our HTV shiny side down, and then we mirror our design so we can actually cut into the back of the material while leaving the front HTV carrier sheet intact so that we can move our design over to our blank without altering the design at all. Now, Strip Vlog Pro tends to be a little bit curly on your mat, so I like to use a brayer tool to really push it down. It's okay if it curls up a little bit in the back, but in general, we want it really well stuck to the mat in order to make sure that the cut is good and accurate. So I have my Cricut machine set to the everyday iron-on cut setting with more pressure selected. And now I'm gonna put my mat underneath the roll bar and I'm gonna insert it into my machine. Then once our design is finished, we'll click the arrow button to unload the mat from our Cricut machine. And now I'm gonna remove this sheet from our mat and add the Caesar Electric. This is Cherry Caesar Electric. I love this color so much. I think it's gonna look so good on a light pink baby onesie. It's gonna be adorable. So again, we're gonna put that shiny side down with the dull side facing up onto the mat. Oops. A little bit of a wrinkle there, which really isn't too big of a deal, but I just think that the Cricut makes a more accurate cut if everything is laid nice and flat onto the mat. Now I need to adjust my cut in Cricut Design Space to still be the everyday iron-on cut setting, but turn off the more pressure setting. Then we'll load the mat into our machine. And once it's done measuring, we'll begin the cut. And now we can remove this mat from our machine as well. The next step of this project is to weed out the cuts that our Cricut has just made. But while I'm weeding, I'm gonna go ahead and set my Cricut Easy Press to the highest temperature that I need to use it at today, which is for the Strip Vlog Pro, which applies at 320 degrees for 15 to 20 seconds. So I always think it's good to multitask. So we'll go ahead and let this be working and heating up. So I'll just do 18 seconds because it says 15 to 20. So that's right in the middle. So we'll set this aside now while we weed. So I'll start with the Carter design that's going to be a little bit quicker to weed. So of course you want to flip it over to the back side so that the carrier sheet side is down on the mat. And this is where we're actually going to do our weeding. And typically Strip Vlog Pro is really easy to weed, which is something that I love about it. Something else to note about it though is that the carrier sheet is really not very sticky, maybe just a little bit tacky. So when you place it on the garment to actually press it, it's not going to stick as well as other types of HTV. So just something to note in case you've never worked with it before. We'll just begin by pulling away all of the pieces from around the outside. And then we'll go in with our weeding pen and get all of the areas inside the letters. And our first design is ready to go. So now I'll repeat the same process with the Caesar Electric of weeding out the outside using my weeding pen and my fingers. And then I'll go back in and remove the details. Something that I like to do before I'm finished weeding is flip the design back over and look at the way that it's supposed to look. Sometimes I also will reference my screen in Cricut Design Space as well to make sure that I haven't missed any parts of the design. And actually, as I was flipping it over, the bottom of the F is still filled in. So it's always good to double check your work and make sure that you didn't miss any spots before you apply the heat transfer vinyl. Also, you have to watch little teeny tiny pieces that come off from your HTV. Make sure they don't get stuck to the carrier sheet or they will definitely be applied to the garment. So then I can take one more look and make sure that all the letters are weeded out completely. And that looks good to me, so now it's time to apply these to our shirts. So the first step that we are going to take is getting the HTV lined up on our onesies. So I'm gonna take the 12-month onesie that I am using with the Carter design, and the first thing I wanna do is find the spot where I want to apply it. So you can always eyeball these, that's always a good choice. But I do have this really helpful t-shirt ruler that actually has an infant size. It has an adult, toddler, infant, and I think just like a youth size. You can place underneath the neckline of the onesie, which can be helpful because as you can see, sometimes the necklines are not perfectly square and sometimes the tags are not sewn perfectly in the middle of the onesie. So it can be helpful to have this as a guide. It's helpful because it helps you find the center line and it also spaces you enough correctly from the neckline itself. So with bodysuits or baby onesies, you only want to put it about an inch below the neckline, and this is measured out at exactly an inch for us already. So it's a super convenient thing to do. And if you want to double check where the center of your HTV design is, you can fold the non-sticky sides together and you kind of line up the edges of your design like that and hold them in place. And then you can create a crease in the center of your carrier sheet. And that will give you kind of a middle line to go off of when you're lining up your HTV. So then it looks something like this. And then I can just line up this line with the center line right here on my onesie. Now, the only trick here is that I do want this to be tilted slightly, so the center line's not going to be as helpful for us in this case. But I can still kind of approximate it. Like I know that the center of my design is about here. But even with the t-shirt ruler, I am still gonna take it away and kind of double check and make sure I like the way that it looks. And something I forgot to mention about Strip Vlog Pro, in case you guys have not worked with it before, one of the things I love about it is it has kind of a faux suede texture to it. So it's really, really nice and soft. And that's why I love using it so much for baby clothes. Because I don't know about you, but when I think about things for babies, I think about everything that's soft and cozy and cuddly. Whereas some other types of HTV, say glitter HTV, for example, has that kind of rougher texture. And so I love using Strip Vlog Pro for babies because it's so nice and soft. And I think this looks great, so we are good to go. And even though the carrier sheet is not super sticky, I think it's sticky enough to stick to the onesie for now. Let's talk about that hack that I promised you in the beginning of this video that is a game changer for making onesies and bodysuits and any kind of personalized baby clothes. I talked about seams being an issue with any kind of baby clothes, and this one's a little bit non-traditional because it has, of course, the upper seam, but this is like a raglan style onesie, so the seams are not the same as it is on a regular baby bodysuit. But as you can see, there are still quite a lot of seams here. And because of all of these seams, or even on regular onesies, they're up here, all of the presence of the seams can cause the contact from the heat source, whether it's an easy press, an iron, or a heat press, to be really uneven. That's what causes HTV to peel. So whenever you're working with onesies, my number one hack and trick is to always, always, always raise the surface of the garment up above those seams. Now this is a pressing pillow, and that's what I'm going to use to raise up the surface of my onesie. And this is a really long, I think it's a 5-inch wide by 18-inch pressing pillow. So it's kind of an odd size, but this is the whole reason I bought this, is so that I can use it with baby onesies. And what this does is it goes underneath the onesie like this. And if possible, it's not always possible depending on like your design and everything, but what I'm gonna try to do is arrange the pressing pillow underneath the clothes so that all of the HTV is on top of the pressing pillow, but none of the seams are. The seams for the neckline and both of these side seams are off of the sides of the pressing pillow. You can kind of see them right there. The surface of the HTV is raised up nice and high so that I can get really good contact with my easy press, because that's what I'm going to be using in this case. If you don't have a pressing pillow, because this is kind of a unique size and everything, so I understand not all of you will, what you can do is you can take a kitchen towel and and you can fold it up into thirds, kind of like how you would hang it over your, like the handle of your stove. And you could put that underneath your onesie to raise up the seams of your garment. So that's my number one hack. I'm telling you, it's a game changer, makes everything so much more durable, and you're gonna be washing this a lot if your baby wears it regularly. So you definitely wanna make sure everything is properly applied so that the heat transfer vinyl will last as long as possible. So I hope that helps, and I hope that that's something that you'll try next time you're personalizing baby clothes. Now, I am gonna go ahead and press this with a Teflon sheet over top of it. What this does is it protects the surface of my Easy Press from getting any HTV on the surface, or just anything that can get on my Easy Press, because a Teflon sheet is a lot easier to clean than the surface of my press. So I'm gonna lay my Teflon sheet down, and then I'm gonna press my Cricut Easy Press over top. So I will press it down here and press the Cricut button. And also notice that I do have the Easy Press pad underneath my onesie. If you are using a Cricut Easy Press, in my opinion, an Easy Press pad is absolutely essential for getting a good press with an Easy Press. So now that the timer has gone off, I'm gonna move this out of the way. Another tricky part about using Strip Flock Pro, if you're new to it, is that it requires a cold peel, which means I need to allow my garment to cool back to complete room temperature. It should even feel a little bit cool to the touch before I peel it. So I'm gonna set this aside while this cools, and we can work with the other onesie in the meantime. So with the second onesie, or baby bodysuit, we're gonna follow the exact same procedure that we did before. I'm gonna use my t-shirt ruler to try to find the center line here of our onesie. This also gives me my 1-inch measurement below the neckline. Again, I'm also gonna fold the non-sticky sides together of my design and create that little center line in my carrier sheet. This does not hurt the design, by the way, to press a little crease into the carrier sheet, because your heat source is going to take care of all that, so no problem. And since this one is gonna be straight up and down, we can utilize lining up the center line of our design with the center line of the t-shirt ruler, just like that. And like I said, I'm still gonna take the t-shirt ruler away and make sure everything looks okay. I think that it's certainly a good tool to have, but even sometimes if you have the t-shirt ruler off to one side or the other, it's not 100% accurate. So always take a look and make sure that you like it before you end up pressing it. Try to lay my onesie out. All of the design is on top, but all of the seams are off to the side to really raise up the surface that's underneath the actual design. Then I'm gonna place down my Teflon sheet and press. And before I press this, I wanna remind you guys that Caesar Electric presses at a little bit of a cooler temperature. So we are doing 305 degrees for 12 seconds. So I'm gonna place this on top of where my design is, push down and press the Cricut button. And everything is still over top of that Easy Press mat to make sure I'm protecting my table. And when it's done, I'll remove the Easy Press and remove the Teflon sheet. Then we'll give it a few seconds to cool. I'm not gonna peel it right away, but we were able to cover the design really well. So this should peel beautifully. Sometimes with an Easy Press though, as I'm peeling this, I realize that I need to go back and add some more pressure, but this looks great. So I think we covered it. Another tip to keep in mind when it comes to using heat transfer vinyl in general is that you do want to wait at least 24 hours to wash anything that you make with heat transfer vinyl. So if you are making this and gifting it like in the same day, try to do it a little bit sooner in case the parents-to-be take this home and wash it right away so that the HTV has plenty of time to cure on the material of the shirt. I know it looks a little dark there, but check out how beautiful this coloring is. It looks so beautiful in the light, and I love the pink on pink. And I use the perfect Bible verse, every good and perfect gift is from above, James 1:17, because babies are surely a gift. Now that we've pressed this one, let's take a look at the Carter onesie. It should be cool to the touch, so we should be able to peel it. Everything feels like, obviously I can't describe that to you through the camera, other than it feels cool to the touch when I touch the carrier sheet. That means it's ready to peel. So we'll slowly peel this part away. And sometimes, especially with materials like Strip Flock Pro, I do feel like it pulls a little bit as you remove it, but that's totally normal. As long as you press it at the correct time, temperature, and pressure and let it cool correctly, it should peel just fine. And this turned out so cute. I love the baseball theme, like these little swashes with a raglan style onesie. It's so cute. And I'll try to show you that this is just a little bit three-dimensional. Not a lot, but it's nice and soft. Like I said, it has kind of a faux suede look to it, and it turned out super fun. I absolutely love this font. I'm so excited that I found it on Creative Fabrica. I know you guys are gonna love it too. Wanted to show you a couple of other examples of some things I've made for Carter in the past so that you can get some other ideas if you're making something else for baby gifts. So if you're interested in making some different kinds of personalized baby clothes, whether it's for a baby for you or a gift that you're making, here are a couple of things that I've made for Carter. So this is just a Lucky Saurus little St. Patrick's Day onesie that I made for him, but I used some Caesar Electric here as well. That's what gives it the shiny look, along with some Caesar Easy Weed to layer underneath that. Or maybe it was Starcraft Soft Flex. But either way, I use lots of Caesar Electric to give it that fun, shiny look. Some other things that I made while I was still pregnant with Carter are these two. Both of these are using Strip Flock Pro, so I'll get them a little bit closer in just a second. But I wanted to offer this suggestion because I know lots of people don't necessarily announce either the gender and or the name of the baby before they come. So that can make it really difficult to make a baby gift that's personalized without knowing the name and or the gender. So when I was pregnant, I announced that I was having a baby boy, but I waited to share his name until he was born. So the reason I put an airplane on the pocket of these overalls is because his nursery was done in airplanes. So that gave me like a fun little general theme to go on, and that's what I put here. This is just a single layer of Strip Flock Pro in green. And like I talked about before, we definitely had to cross a seam here. I didn't have any other choice if I wanted to personalize on this pocket, but it still turned out well because I pressed it really well, so it's washed up and held up completely fine. But probably my favorite baby item I've ever made is this denim jacket. This is a size 3 to 6 months jacket that I got from Target while I was pregnant, and I just did a really thick offset for the dark red area behind the white. And then of course our last name is Vanover. So without knowing the name or the gender of the baby, you could totally do something like this. This is probably a little more on the boyish side, but even still, this was something super cute that I did. I loved having him wear this jacket and it went over really, really great. So you can still personalize things regardless of what the parents to be decide to share about the baby before it's born. Thanks again to Ara for sponsoring this video. You can find a link in the description to try a free trial of Ara for 2 weeks. If you learned something in this video, then be sure to give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe to DIY Alex for more videos a lot like this one. If we haven't already connected on social media, I would love to get to know you, so please check the description of this video for links to all the platforms that I'm on. All the hearts.